Good evening, everybody. Happy Tarot Tuesday. It's me, Sarah G, Witch MD. That's the Master of Divination. Here coming to you live from the office. And tonight's guest is Nicole Nadine, host, who is coming to us from New York City. Hi, how are you?
Good, always good to see you.
Oh, good to see. See, New York City, right there, right in the background, right?
I was just announcing
You were like,
yourself.
is this on? Is this on? Here I am. So how I start these podcasts is it is Tarot Tuesday. Happy Tarot Tuesday to everybody. And I pull a card and we kind of talk about what it means to us, because I'm trying to kind of show everybody out there that just because there are book meanings to certain things doesn't necessarily mean that we all think in that same kind of genre, where there might be a meaning to a different thing that you might consider as important. And because my life is different than yours, I consider it important, right? So happy Tarot Tuesday, everybody. I pulled a card off camera and it kind of like fell into my lap. So it makes a lot of sense. In my world, we call that a jumper. And this is the Ethereal Tarot by Matt Hughes. I know it is not picking up very nicely on camera, but this is the Ace of Pentacles. So there isn't much more than hands from the universe and a pentacle coming out there. So, Miss Nicole, what do you think?
Whenever I see Ace of Pentacles, for me, it's like the seed of a new opportunity, something in the earthly realm, right? Pentacles being, money, career related usually. So it usually tells me that someone either has an idea for a new opportunity or there's a new opportunity on the horizon that might be offered soon or is already in your field or consciousness, and that you have a little spark of an idea. And usually to me, it means go that direction. It might just be the very beginning of something. It might not even be in your reality yet, but it's something you're thinking about taking on. So usually to me, it's a good sign of like, if you've been thinking about something, you have a little idea in your head, it's like a sign that that's something you're supposed to pursue.
Exactly. I would agree. And the other thing that I want to say is that, again, because it looks like there's a hand that's handing it to you, sometimes we associate that aces with number one, right? And that's like step one. And sometimes the opportunity is going in your mind, like you said, you're planting that seed, but sometimes you need a little hand to do that.
Yeah.
And so you need certain things to fall into place before the next step is approached or before that next kind of movement is. And I feel like that hand is sometimes a guiding hand for us. So I love the fact that you said planting a seed, because you are, pentacles are that earthbound or that grounding energy anyway. So maybe we all need to come back down to earth a little bit and to kind of understand things a little bit differently. We planted some seeds. We're going to see what happens and see if they grow, right? So that kind of makes sense to that as well. Speaking of that, I know that, you've kind of come back down to earth, so to speak, and really got grounded, because you recently came back from the last 2 weeks came back from a soul altering life, kind of
awakening.
Yeah, exactly. I was looking for that right word. Trip. So tell me about where you were, what you did, some of the takeaways that you had from it, because I know that, you are now questioning the direction that you were going in before you left.
Yes. Funny that you bring that card up, because I'm thinking about doing things, an easier way. I think what it made me realize is that our default here is busyness, distraction. Modern life just does that to us, right? Like I went to a very primitive village in Africa. I went to Kenya. I saw a Maasai village, and it's literally just, clay structure is made out of elephant dung and straw, very simple. They cook in the middle, and then there's the 2 openings for the bedrooms where they sleep, and that's it. And I'm like, where we think we're so advanced, and we're so advanced that we have enough leisure time to make ourselves crazy, is what I say. Like, because
right. First world problems,
Yeah, like your lifestyle's so simple and
Mm-hmm.
therefore peaceful, and they work in community, and they're not like, they're watching each other's kids, and there's like some kind of natural rhythm to things. They wake up when the sun comes up, and they go to bed when the sun goes down, and like it's more like natural instincts too. When you watch the animals, right? I was on safari, and it's like they're not overthinking anything. They're literally just living off instinct and intuition, like I think we're supposed to. But because we live in modern life now, it's a lot harder to stay connected to that. And that's where tarot to me is like a way to reconnect to your inner knowing. Whereas they're just using it as part of their daily life. It's how they actually survive.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to these islands that were just pristine and beautiful and quiet, and no one was there. And it was literally like being stranded, like Gilligan's Island. And it's probably the first time in my life where I was just alone and at peace and disconnected. And my default is busy and has been since I'm a teenager, and partly that's survival mode, right? And partly it's become a habit. My cats are waking up. That's probably you, by the way, with the cat. But what it made me think is like, this is a choice. Like we have things we have to do. Like you're a mom, you've got to get your kids to school, like I got to pay bills, but like within that, how can we invite more peace and simplicity? Like, 'cause I think a lot of it we choose, and we don't even know why we're still doing some of this stuff. And so it made me want to come back and get to like living, like just living.
Mm-hmm.
And what is the clutter that's in the way is what I'm looking at. And how can I do, like, I love coaching, but maybe, I need to do a group program and consolidate my time and energy, and I can still be providing a lot of value. And then I get to bring community to people, I think
Right.
it's also valuable, but like, it doesn't have to be my sole focus just because someone told me so. Right. Or
right.
Because I've been doing this same thing for so long or whatever. So I'm actively looking at like, what can I cut to invite more space? Because I always say the universe loves a vacuum, meaning like you make room, like you clean out your closet, right? Let's say you want to bring in a partner, but where's he going to put his stuff in your house? Like if you clean the closet first, maybe the partner comes because there's actually room for him. You know what I mean? So,
right. And there's truth in that. Yep,
yeah,
exactly.
So same with our lives. So I'm kind of looking at like, I'm acknowledging that I am the worst offender of being busy and saying time being my stressor, and largely I don't have to do that right now. And so, yeah. And I think that all of us should look at that every once in a while and reevaluate, which I think the cards help us reevaluate, right? Like, okay,
right.
Be clear,
Right. And I think that we're in this kind of momentum of saying yes to everything and to kind of obliging certain situations and certain kind of attitudes and saying, I can do this, I can handle all of these things, I can put all of this on my plate.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, where does that bring you peace? And where does that make you feel that you are grounded and that you're connected in a certain way? Maybe we should start saying no a little bit more, or kind of no is not an inherently a bad word. I mean, it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be black or white, yes or no, good or bad. It doesn't have that connotation all of the time. Sometimes no is a good thing if you think about it, because we are only dumb humans, right? So if we put too much on our plate, then we really can't focus, and we really can't connect and ground ourselves on the things of source or the things of importance that would make sense to us. So I think that by you saying, that you're reevaluating and kind of looking at things a little bit differently, especially after a totally soul searching excursion that you've gone on, it makes so much sense. This is the time that you should be thinking about that.
Right.
And your no or your yes, however you want to look at it, is completely changing based on that kind of process.
Yeah.
And cards are going to be cards, right? They're always going to give us an example of what we do, or or what we can kind of help somebody through, or give the tools to that person, right? And that's why cards mean things that are different, or have different meanings to you versus to me, because your life experience is different.
Right.
And so is mine.
Yep.
So
I think that's why it's a sign of our intuition. Like, I think of it like, the Rorschach test. I was thinking, how would I explain it to someone that totally doesn't believe in this or doesn't understand it. And I'd say, like a Rorschach test, the ink blots, like it has no inherent meaning, right? It's just an ink blot on a paper. You're going to see whatever your psyche is telling you it is, right? And so that's never like people that tarot made up. I'm like, it's not made up if it's resonating with you, right? It's not made up. Like even Carl Jung said, like, you look at an image, a strong archetype, and you have a feeling one way or the other. That just tells you something about yourself, right? So
exactly.
It doesn't. I always say there's no power in the cards; they're just a piece of paper. But the power is in like your ability to interpret what it means to you, and that does help you navigate your life. And I think perspective, like getting out and seeing other cultures, and that this isn't how everybody lives. Like we choose to live this way, and it has benefits, right? We have infrastructure they don't have. And it also has a downside, which is that most of us are chronically stressed out, or what I see, and overwhelmed and anxious. And it's a lot of times because we put too much on our plate, like you said, and not all of it needs to be there. I think that people pleasing is what you're saying, like not being able to say no. I see a lot, like my clients, and it's because either usually we were growing up caretaking other people, and it's our default now, or women get conditioned a lot of times that's our job, is to make everyone happy and keep the peace. And we put ourselves aside, and there's some chronic betrayal of the self there. And I'm doing a couple things that I said I didn't want to do again. And I'm like, where it gets tricky is you might be getting something out of it, right? Like it might be feeding something else. Maybe it's not feeding your dream, but it's paying the bills or whatever it is. And that gets harder to let go of those things and know when it's time. But I think the more intuitive you are, you can feel, like you have to trust the feeling of like, well, this has kind of overstayed its welcome in my life, or this I need to like, I know you're good at that. You're saying, I can feel it's time to start doing events again, but I'm going to do it in a different way that doesn't burn me out. And I'm going to set limits on my time and my energy and that kind of thing, so.
Right. And I think that the more that we are in this rat race or this cycle of doing all of these things and saying yes and crowding our plates with way too much, we do lose the sense of that intuition. We do lose the sense of, am I supposed to be here? Like, what's going on here? So sometimes we need that, for lack of a better term, and it's kind of funny that I'm saying this, but come to Jesus moment of understanding, that things need to change before they get, into a place that you can understand and ascend in a different way. So you did mention clients. So tell me a little bit about your business and kind of where you're coming from.
Sure. So my business actually started with tarot. I mean, that was kind of, a side business. It's just something I did, and then it just evolved into a business. But what I would notice is that at the end, I would give people homework just naturally, like something that would come up, like, might be something to buy or something, a crystal or something to do or something to think about, mindset stuff. Could even be stuff about like impact boundaries and how to protect yourself from a narcissist type of thing. And I'd give them homework, but then I would never get to see them again and like get to follow up and see how it went, and my goal is always to sort of push them towards their destiny, right? And like what they're called to do. And a lot of times our mindset's in the way of fears, doubt, that old conditioning, like we said. And I've had a little success, following my dreams just by getting through that fear and doing it anyway, kind of like the Fool card, I would say, is like somewhere between the Fool and then the Magician, right? Manifesting. And so, a lot of people don't trust their intuition is what I've noticed. And I think you and I, people like us, we tend to go with the intuition and figure out the steps later. And a lot of people think we need the steps before I should take action. And I don't think that's how it works. So now I do, one-on-one coaching. I call it intuitive life purpose coaching is the best way I could think to describe it, because basically that's what I'm doing is help them recognize like where there might be blocks, like where their body might be telling you, it's time to make a change, or maybe it's just a mindset block. Where does it come from? How can we unlearn it? And where are you giving out more energy than you're getting back? Where do you want to make conscious changes in your lives to be more aligned to what you really want? But let's figure out what you really want, because a lot of people don't know also, like they haven't looked at their body in a while, right? Like they haven't, maybe you're still operating based on what your childhood self wanted, and that could be good or bad, and so I help them kind of get clear on what their intuition's saying, overcome those mindset and fear blocks, and then put a plan together to go for what they really want. And that looks different for everyone. For some people, they're like, I want to start completely over and get a different type of job. I want to start a business, or maybe I have one and I need, like my friend Janelle, and I want to start putting myself out there more. Get that over that scary hump of, putting your true self out in the world. And then some people just want to feel better every day, have less stress, or know how to handle when those, triggering moments come up, and be able to trust themselves more and get the answers from themselves. So, my goal is more to make them reliant on themselves than to be coming back to me every time they need questions for a reading, and so basically I think I help people kind of reclaim their true self and unlearn who they're not and go for the life they really want to live. And I have a lot of fun. We try to have fun on the way. I mean, it's deep inner work, but like it can also be fun, and we can laugh at ourselves, and all when needed. But I can also empathize, because I've been there where it's hard to and I'm still doing it, right? It's hard. Like, we feel the resistance when we want to change a pattern, but it's so familiar to us that it's kind of comforting in a weird way. We don't let go.
Right. And I always say that, as a reader, I hardly read for myself.
Yeah.
Because we get too analytical. We have to have that kind of removal of the idea of that you're doing this for yourself. Sometimes you need that third party to come in and say, this is what you need to do. So right? Yeah, of course. So I get that self-reflection of, I can tell people what's up and what to do, and, guide people in a certain direction. But when it comes to myself, that's a little bit harder. And I think that it goes hand in hand with what you were saying about intuition in general, right? Because the more that we look at things and the more that we kind of feel it in a certain way, we're going to go with it. We might not have all of the pieces in front of us, or we might not have all of the all of the itinerary right there. But what we're doing is we're getting to the point that we can understand that there is a plan for us, or that there's something that's guiding us in this specific direction for a purpose. Right. And I think that what you are doing by having this, or holding space, or having that kind of connection with your clientele and talking to them about what's important to them, because you're right, a lot of people don't ask those hard questions of themselves.
Well, and it's because of that survival mode mentality, which I could fully understand. I've been single, and I've been kind of on my own and independent since I was young, and when you are like, well, let me make sure I have a plan A, B, and C, and let me do this and let me do that, it helps you to a point, and then it starts holding you back at some point. You got to know when that point is, actually, I'm okay right now. And if I took this risk, like, it might help me grow my life. Whereas if I don't, I might be stuck here, at this level that I've already kind of moved on from, hard to know that for yourself. I mean, that's why, therapy, life coaching, tarot, any of it is like a mirror to me, where it's just holding up the objective truth to you. And then you have a choice to make. Like, okay, I agree with it. So now I only have one option. I can either keep going this way, which my energy will predict the outcome, right? Or I can make a change to my energy, and then I might be able to attract something different. And I do believe what you said, that we all have a path and a purpose, and it changes and winds and all of that. But we can feel when we're on it, I think. We can feel when we're off it because it doesn't feel good. And then there's that trust element. That's the hardest part, is that leap of faith trust that, like, the universe is going to catch you on the other side if you decide to go for the wild card, Hail Mary pass. But for me, it always has. And I've ended up happier because of following it. So I've never regretted following my intuition. So that's the one thing I could say when I'm feeling it, and when I'm trying to resist it, it'll come knocking again. It's pretty persistent, a little voice. So I just tend to trust that. And I if I can help people trust theirs more, I just think it's an easier path than trying to figure it out in your head.
Right. And having a sounding board, and having somebody who's like, and a coach is exactly the right word for it, to be perfectly honest with you, because you're not only their coach, you're their cheerleader, you're their, therapist in a certain way. You're handling things, that they feel unsure that they can't handle themselves. And of course, obviously not trained clinical therapists. That's not what I'm trying to say, so don't come at me. But right? Because there's a fine line there, because we give our energy for that purpose of helping somebody, however it looks. And sometimes, it's you're kind of enmeshed in all of it. Well, and really what the idea is that you're holding space for that person so that they can find what their true purpose, or where they need to be, or what feels good to them is, and that's it's not linear. I've been saying that a lot lately. one of my favorite people says that all the time. And I was like, I'm going to use that because it makes so much sense. Change is not linear. It goes in all different directions. And so sometimes we just need somebody who's going to be that person who's going to help us through. But again, you had said that you don't, the purpose isn't that you want those people to keep coming back. You want them to get to the point where they don't need you anymore.
Yeah.
They don't need your energy to help them forward.
Yeah. And that's interesting because I I'm putting my first Tarot 101 class together. And what I realized putting it together is, tarot is a full picture of a spiritual journey, like especially the major arcana from start to finish, right? And it isn't linear. It's a circle, right? Like you start the full like leap of faith. Last one is closing out, completing a lesson, right? What happens then? Like it just ends? No, we go back to the beginning again, and it's a full cycle of, but we're at a different level, and like once we've shed our old self, it's funny. A lot of my clients lately are like, now I feel sort of like untethered and like, who am I? And I'm like, that's such a great sign. That means you let your old ego go and you're not doing things the same way anymore, and that can be a little scary, that moment. That's why I'm there. Cause I'm like, I get it. Like, that's the part where you're like, oh my God, I feel like a void, or like a empty, or where am I going? But I actually think that's an exciting place to be because that means you get to create in the future, you get to create the default, the one you've been living on,
Right. And we were talking off camera. I was describing for those of you in New England who are watching, I was describing to Nicole, because she's not from here, what Rocky Point is. And there was a ride at Rocky Point, which was an amusement park locally in Rhode Island, that a lot of people have a lot of great memories associated to. But anyway, there was a ride there called the Free Fall. And literally it was, that was it. It was, you got strapped in and you dropped. And I think that is the moment where you don't have any, you're not tethered, right? So you don't have anything, but your stomach drops because you're like, okay, I should feel this, or I should do this, but I'm going to go with it. So it's either you enjoy that kind of a ride or you don't. And I think that the more that you hold on to things and the more that you are not in that free kind of environment is where you're not going to like that ride. But
well, that's us trying to control, right? That's our human need to control. And it's like when you're putting it like I was talking to someone that, is going through another diagnosis, a second time she's been diagnosed with with an illness, right? And when you get in these moments, like there's times in our lives when we're forced to let go of control. Like let's say we get an injury or we get sick or something happens that we couldn't have controlled. It's like in those moments we usually do let go, but can we do that on the rest of our life and have an easier journey? Like right now I realize that's what I'm going to do. I'm holding on too tight, trying to make it happen, trying to force things in. And I'm like, I'm just going to let go because that's when the universe kicks in, and that's trust. That's faith. That's like, that manifesting, right?
So that's your hand, right? That's your helping hand. That's your, you're going to let things go and you're going to plant the seeds of what you want to, accomplish in a certain way. And you're going to have a helping hand. You might not be able to see it. It might not be in the form of a human person. It might not be in the form of a furry energy, i.e. a cat or a dog, but it might be something that will just lead you in that path that you're like, yep, this is exactly what I'm supposed to be, exactly what I'm supposed to be doing, exactly where I'm supposed to be in the world, whatever the case may be. And we have to trust it. And that goes hand in hand, no pun intended, with intuition and trusting your intuition and trusting what that looks like. Because everybody has different intuition, although we all have it in some form, so I feel like that's really important to kind of talk about. And I know that, with a life altering excursion, like what you have just gone on, right? You come back and to be perfectly honest, and not everybody knows that, but you got sick when you came back.
And it wasn't from the trip, funny enough. It was but I almost think, you know what it was? I think I hadn't fully integrated what I learned, and the universe was like, nope, we're not letting you just jump right back in and do it the way that you've always done it. Nope, you didn't learn the lesson. Okay, we'll just take you out for a week. I never get sick like that. And I was actually relieved. That was interesting because I was kind of relieved because I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to jump back into the hustle. And then I realized this is the point. I'm not supposed to be hustling. Like I am done with the hustling part of my life. And I knew that this trip was a chapter closer. I could feel it before I left. I knew certain things that were going to happen. I happened to pick up this book, Gift of the Sea, as I was sitting there, and it was all about exactly what was in my head already. Someone had gifted it to me as a gift for my trip. And it was written 50 years ago, by the way. It was about how we don't just take time to play, and we don't take time to have fun. And I've been so business focused for so long that I was like, I got it, but I didn't really get it. But once I was out for a week, I kind of was like, you know what? No, I'm not going back to working as much as I have. There's things I need to let go of. I know I've been thinking that for a while and putting it off. And I want to invite space, for other things in my life, enjoying my weekends and my friends and relationships, stuff like that. And where's the space for it? Like I could just tell, I'm always telling people I'm busy. I don't have time. It's like, okay, well, I'm pigeonholing myself into a certain thing here.
Right.
And what do I tell people all day long? Like, follow your intuition. There's other things I do want to pursue that are getting pushed aside, and I go to my old therapists and coaches when I get in those points where I'm like, I could tell I'm holding myself back. Something's blocking me and I don't even know what it is. And they reflect back to me things. And I'm like, if it resonates with me, like, it doesn't matter who it comes from. It could be an ad you scroll past. If it's resonating with you, it's because your soul is agreeing with it, basically. Right. And so that's what I do when I feel like, okay, I was lost in my head trying to figure it out. I was like, well, here I am again, trying to figure it out from my head, not the point, right? Like, listen to myself. And myself just kept saying, well, you want an easier journey at this point. You want to have fun. And then we feel guilty about that, right? Like,
right.
Oh, but I haven't done this yet, and I haven't built this, and I got to do this. And I just thought, letting go. And sometimes those most difficult points of your life too, like when you're going through a lot or you just don't see a way out, I think your only option is to let go. But that's the ultimate trust to me. That's that, like,
right.
It's going to catch me. And that's when things can work out better than you can imagine at the time, because you're not trying to force it, And
right.
that is a big thing we do. So.
Right. And we're conditioned to do that. You did mention that earlier. We are conditioned. But okay, so based on all of that we've been talking about, what would you recommend somebody do if they want to deepen their intuition and kind of get a better grasp on how it is to determine what makes sense to them? How would you?
I'd say if they start to feel themselves spinning, right? I mean, there's a lot of techniques. I'm doing like a free workshop next month. Someone in my group is leading about EFT tapping. I love that because it's literally just tapping pressure points on your body and it tells your nervous system to relax. So there's things like that you can do that, like, relax your nervous system so that you're not in fight or flight freaking out, because you can't think in that state. And you also can't hear your intuition. I always tell people you have to get away from other people and you have to start listening to what the thoughts that are coming in your head. And if they say the words should, supposed to, those are all trigger words to me that you're operating from conditioning or what someone made you feel like you should do, or even what you're telling yourself, right?
Right.
And I think we got to trust how we feel and just what we want. Like, what we want to do is the key to me. Like,
right.
Even Abraham Hicks in Law of Attraction says, what feels exciting to you? Like, what's that next inspired idea? Like, what are you dreading doing? And what are you looking forward to doing? Because maybe we can put more energy towards that. Like, we don't have to do anything. Like, there's no right or wrong. I keep saying this week, and that comes to the universe. Like, it's only right or wrong to you, but we don't often trust how we feel or follow it. So if I'm not sure what my intuition is telling me, I try to get away from other people, whatever that is, going outside, spending some time alone, taking a day off. My intuition usually comes when I'm kind of distracted, like doing something mundane, right? Like, I could be walking to do something or doing laundry, or like, so I wake up sometimes, like and paying attention to dreams. That's another one. I had one last night that was like, okay, I get the point, and we don't often listen to those messages. Dream journals are great. And then just what keeps coming up repeatedly, like, to me,
right.
Thoughts come and go, but like, if it's the same thought, like, over and over, and it feels good to you, that's always something that I would follow. Like, it's like a little breadcrumb on your soul trip, right?
Yeah. And it's funny that you say the repetitive nature of things, because I think that universe, or even spirit for that matter, or some people would consider it like angel numbers or whatever. It's the repetition. It is seeing that number over and over, or it's seeing that thing over and over that is really going to get your attention and grab you in a certain way, so that you can be like, I need to pay attention. And it's not always an ominous thing, right? And I think
No.
that that's what we are, again, that word condition, it's what we are kind of told that we're supposed to do because we see movies and television and read books. And, that imagination that has come forth with, if you see that letter, that number, or whatever, it's an omen. It's
Same
not
with
supposed
tarot
to be.
cards, how people think they're evil. I'm like, how could tapping into your own intuition be evil unless you're evil? But
Right, but
yeah.
it's supposed to get our attention, and that's the
Yeah.
point. I look at the clock and I see my birthday all the time.
You know what's funny
I'll
about
look up
that?
and I'll see my birthday, and I'm like,
It's your symbol,
somebody's
your
around.
number.
Yep. And
Yep.
I'm always like, thank you, and always the gratitude that kind of falls from that as well, of thank you so much for keeping me in, an understanding that I needed to see that today. Sometimes it's just an affirmation that I'm not alone in what I'm doing, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be like this big play the numbers 65, 74, whatever on Keno, and you're going to win, or stay away from that bus stop. Like, it doesn't have to be so congruent to a negative aspect.
It could be like 11:11 to me. Someone said it means as above, so below, like heaven on earth. And I've been seeing that a lot lately. And I'm not a big numbers person, but enough that I'm noticing why is every time I look at the clock, it's 11:11. And, I take it as a sign that we're in the right place at the right time. Like that,
Exactly.
even if we're questioning, even if we're unsure what we're doing next, it's like, you're where you're supposed to be. And ever since I was a kid, I saw white butterflies. I used to call them bread and butterflies, like Alice in Wonderland. And certain points in my life where I was making a tough decision or something, and I would see one, and I would just always kind of feel like it was my grandmother Nadine. No reason why, And I remember going to a psychic once, and I came outside, and there were two white butterflies. She brought up my grandma, and two white butterflies circling around each other, and like tried to go in my purse. And I was like, I'm never gonna not believe that's not her kind of life and guiding me. I even got it tattooed on my arm because I feel like I follow the white butterfly. It's like, but that's it. If you think about like that, it's also a reminder to me of like, we don't get the whole picture. Like, it'd be pretty boring if we got like I don't really see tarot as fortune telling so much as like, here's your energy and you decide based on your energy what your future's going to look like.
I agree.
The next step, right? Like, they're never going to give us a million steps ahead, but sometimes, like, I'll tell you that for years before I moved back to New York, I lived here, I moved home, thought my exciting part of my life was over, thought I was going to settle down. And then I was having these dreams. Like, I'd bought a house. I really was rooted there. I had a good job. And I'm having these dreams about my mom who had passed away in a backyard. And I could tell it was in Brooklyn. And I'm like, what? Like, for years, I didn't understand what she was doing in Brooklyn because she was from California. And then, I saw hotels, like rooftop bars. I was always at these rooftop hotel bars. I was like, what's up with these hotels? And then the last time I remember, she showed me a bigger desk, and it was looking at this horizon. And she just seemed very real in these dreams. Like, I could hear, smell, I think they're visits, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
they are.
Cut to I move here. My ex-boyfriend had the exact backyard I'd been dreaming of for years. And I could tell him where things used to be and what this used to go there. There used to be a fountain. And I showed him where I wrote it down in my dream journal. And, that ended up being a very narcissistic relationship. I thought, what's the point? But the point of that relationship, I think, was I'm done with this pattern. And I think she was showing me, like, not only are you going to move back to New York, but when this happens, it's still part of the journey, like, it's still all part, and you're going to be okay. And I've never been to so many hotel rooftop bars, but doing events, which is the reason I came here, and getting to live life on literally a different level this time, because I kind of picked up where I left off and went up from there. And that's the benefit, I think, of following your intuition. It's like, you never know where your life could take you when you follow that, but we know where it's going to take us if we just follow our mind, only to what our mind can conceive of, right?
Right.
So
yeah. And you just mentioned doing events, and not a lot of people obviously out there, if you've researched Nicole, that she's also a performer, and I think that having that creative side of her is also a little bit more advantageous to the fact that you do follow your intuition, because it is sort of like this kind of like a dance, so to speak, or it is a movement.
Well, I think that, funny enough, like, probably when I got into dance and creative stuff, it was my way of expressing this big internal world I felt and couldn't explain, right? Because I was always intuitive, but I didn't necessarily know what that meant, or why I was so sensitive to things, or why I felt things before they happened, or whatever. And then when I moved to New York the first time, I was young and naive and everything, but I started songwriting and I started processing some of those things. And it really, when I opened my creative side, it opened my spiritual side, because I think they're the same thing. I think that creativity is channeled, right? Like when I write a song, I think that's coming from some other source. I don't think it's my mind that makes it up. And I have reasons I believe that. But as I opened my creativity, the spirituality started coming out more and more. And, you know, I started having psychic dreams about like very specific things before they happened. And so I think they're kind of interlinked. I think that creative people are inherently probably intuitive, you know. I mean, I was always a creator. I choreographed, I wrote songs, I produced shows. So I could always come up with a dream in my head and make it real. So I guess to me, it wasn't any different than manifesting, right? And I realized that not everyone operates imagination first, right? Usually we want a roadmap, or like, and anytime I've tried to fit in a structure, I've always rebelled, I think, because my intuition was always like, do it your way, you know? And so that has challenges, you know, but a lot of people have other challenges of being stuck in that box and not knowing how to dream of more, right? And I find we limit ourselves, like, to what we think is possible. And I kind of was like, well, what happens if I go for the thing I don't think is possible? And then it happened. So then I was like, well, I might as well try it again, right? So, but when we get older, we start to sort of want to get safer, right? Like,
slow down,
you know, and so, you know, I still, you know, I have my fears and challenges too. And I think I just do it regardless, like do it despite that, not wait for it to, like, I'm never going to do something that I'm not, like, everything I've done, I've had a little fear of, you know, or a lot of fear of, like paralyzing fear at times, you know. Singing in public, I used to be absolutely terrified, but I was like, I want to do it. So I got to move through it, you know?
Right. And, you know, I think that trust of yourself that goes hand in hand again with that intuition about it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
It's going to be okay, I think. And even if I mess up, I can kind of make it not, you know, like I'm not going to think about it. So it probably won't happen.
Well, and even if you mess up, like, okay, so say I blow the note like I did when I was a kid. That was my big fear. What if I blow a note in front of everybody and that's so embarrassing? Okay, it's embarrassing, but no one's going to die. Like, you know, like, it's not the end of the world. And it doesn't even mean I'm a bad singer. It just means like I need to work on that, you know? And we put so much pressure on ourselves to be perfect.
Again, it is saying yes. Maybe sometimes you can say no to that and say, yeah, so what? I messed up. I blew the note, or I didn't do this correctly, or that's not in the right form, or whatever. I didn't use the same thing, but at the same time, it's still mine.
Yeah.
And you kind of own it in a certain way.
It's okay to be at different stages and put yourself out there in the stage you're in. You know, a lot of artists, they'll wait till they think it's perfect. I'm like, then you're going to be waiting forever because you're never going to think you're perfect. But you can do the best you can at this stage. And the way you learn is by doing it, right? Like, I wouldn't be as good of a singer as I am now if I hadn't put myself out 10 years ago, right? And I learned and got myself around good people. And that's another key, right? We don't have to do it alone. We can have support and mentors. And, you know, you've done that for me. I know I'm questioning something. Like, why am I making myself crazy trying to figure it out when there's people I can reach out to and just ask for help, which is hard for us. It's hard for me still, you know, being hyper independent my whole life, but that's the unlearning. Like, I'm unlearning my own patterns still, you know, and whatever I teach is from something that worked for me, not something theoretical, you know, something I actually did. So.
Right, exactly. And I mean, like, teaching from experience is probably the best way to kind of look at it. Even if you aren't as well versed in it, at least you can kind of speak to your own lifestyle or your own life choice of drawing you in that subject or in that matter. I think that you kind of branching out and teaching Tarot 101 and looking at what it is that you want to do and how it is that you want to kind of tackle it and approach it is really important. The fact that you have people who are willing to take your class and learn is also a step in the right direction too. So, you know, there's a need for it. You know, there's a need for it. It's just actually getting it out in a certain way that will make sense to you energetically as well as
and that's where we teach the same one. We probably teach it differently, and we probably get different types of people coming to us because of that. And it's like, it's okay. Like, we could think about, oh, well, what if I don't get the card reading perfect and this person looks it up and finds out it has a different. Well, I'm just going to own that this is how I see it. There's a million ways to see it, and none of them are wrong. You know, you'll also have your own way, but I'm just going to give you a starting point, right? And I think that's
exactly.
like, I don't
Yep.
have all the answers for you. Your soul has all the answers for you. My goal is I'm going to help you try to bring it out in yourself, so whether it's Tarot 101 or the coaching, and I'll even tell them if I say something that doesn't resonate with you, tell me, because I'm just interpreting, right? Or I'm just the medium, whether it's coaching or cards, right? And
Right.
my job is to help you get a sense of what it is to you. And I can feel intuitively whether I'm off or not. And then I'm like, okay, that gives us a little information. And it doesn't mean we're right or wrong. It just means we're trying to figure it out together, kind of thing.
Right.
And
Yep.
I say performing,
Yep.
performing is an energy exchange, just like anything else. I get just as much from them as I'm giving them. And the same when I'm teaching or coaching someone, I'm learning just as much. And they're teaching me just as much about myself as I'm hopefully teaching them,
I say the same thing about readings. I say it's a conversation. We're talking about things that are pertinent to you in your life. And honestly, I don't know your life. So if it doesn't make sense or we're not hitting the mark where you feel like we should be, then let's figure out where we can get into a better space for that. And that doesn't mean that I'm a terrible tarot reader. It just means that I want that client, I want the person who's sitting across from me to get exactly what they need out of this experience. And and that's all there is to it. I tell people, because people will sit in my chair and like look at me with like deer in a headlight sometimes, and I'm like, I'm kooky, but I'm not that kooky. I'm not going to yell at you and tell you what you need to do.
Yeah.
I'm going to have a conversation with you, and we're going to talk about things, and that's what it is. It doesn't have to be.
Well, there's like an implied trust there, right? Of like, I'm trusting that you're in my best interest and that we're working together here. But yeah, if they don't, it's so much harder to read someone that is putting up a wall and saying, prove it to me, when they could get so much more out of the experience if they, and I get wanting to validate too and not wanting to give too much away so that you can validate for yourself, especially with like mediumship, right? But I think if you go in with the idea, like, if I give you if I get a little bit of information from them, I can actually make sure I'm interpreting it right. Whereas if I'm just giving it out, I'm kind of have multiple meanings and I'm kind of throwing it out. But sometimes I'll do that. I'll say, well, this card can mean this, this, or this. Like, which one does it feel like it means to you? Because now it's a little bit of an intuitive coaching exercise, which to me is sort of the point, right?
Right. Yeah, I love the fact that you brought up mediumship, because that also ties into also what we do, but also in the sense of what our intuition does. And, we're getting these messages that are meant for us inherently. They are meant for somebody else. And so we are interpreting those messages and we are delivering them in the best ways that we, that we're supposed to do. Right. So I think that within this kind of space of, you are giving a certain example or reference point or sentimental value to somebody else's, person who has passed away or loved one or whatever. I was trying to get the words out there. But you're trying to do this, and it doesn't mean the same thing to us as it does to them.
Right.
Sometimes,
and is different. Right.
Exactly. So sometimes, and I do say this a lot. Sometimes we just have to say what it is that we see or that we're feeling or the energy that we're, I will say this all the time. It's like, one time I'll never forget, it was somebody's grandmother that passed away. And for whatever reason, I connect a lot with grandparents, probably because I have such a great connection to mine. But somebody's grandmother that I was sitting in front of me kept trying to hand me a lasagna pan. And I was like, this might sound kooky, but I'm going to say it. Lasagna. And then my client was in tears, and I've been trying to, I use that pan and I think of her, and we don't know, but we're trusting our intuition that it's for the right thing.
I've gone through that same thing where it's like we want to almost over interpret what we see, like, because if you had said she's showing me cooking, or like there was something specific there that you picked up on, and just say it. I've learned almost not to interpret sometimes. Like, it's better to just, but that requires a lot of a trust, right? Like, say literally what I'm saying. I have one like that where my friend came, wanted to connect to her grandmother, and all I could see was Irish Spring soap. I could smell it. I could see it. And I'm like, that's really random to me. I was like, this seems stupid to say, like, right off the bat. And I was like, maybe my brain's just making this up. You start to think. But I said, I was doing soap, and she burst into tears. And I was like,
oh my goodness.
She goes, she always had that in her bathroom. She's like, I could smell it right now. She's like, and she passed away in her bathroom. And I'm like,
oh,
you know what I mean? And I'm like,
that connection.
So I was like, that's when I learned just to say what I see, even if it seems crazy. And I might even say sometimes, like, this kind of seems off the cuff, but like, this is just what I see, especially again, if it's repeating a lot, like yours was, right? A lot, it's like, okay, they're kind of adamant, like, this is like important, right? If we only listen to our own intuition that way, when it's repeated. And, writing things down is good because it sort of makes it real to us. Like, if we're getting the same intuition, it's good to, what's my intuition telling me today? Even just asking yourself that is such a step towards listening to it, right? And like,
wow, yeah. That's, I never thought of that. And again, it's because there's so much on my plate of saying yes.
Yeah.
That I have all these beautiful journals. I've had clients that have bought me journals. I have all these great things, yet I never write in them. And I tell people all the time that, we need to write in our journals. So yeah, writing what it exactly is coming out of the peripheral of this is what needs to happen today, or this is what my intuition is of this week, or whatever it looks like.
We make our shopping lists, right? We make our list of to-dos, but like, do we ever make our like dream wish lists? Or like, what if I just wrote like the craziest thing I could think of that I want and like throw it on a vision board? Like, we never give ourselves that like time to dream, or even to just have your alone time. Moms, like, they chronically are putting everyone else first, right? And it's like just that permission to journal for yourself, even making up to yourself, so important when you're responsible for so many people.
Right. I used to love baking concept boards when I was in school, and then when I was in college as well, because I went to school for textiles, fashion merchandising, and design. So there was a lot of concept boards, a lot of trends and things like that. So we would mood board, right? So we would be looking at all of these different things. I used to love to do that because it kind of was a litmus test of what was going on in my life at any given moment. And I also love to decoupage. So I mean, it made so much sense at the time that's just another form of kind of who we are and how to get creative with it.
Creative people, I noticed, like, I was telling someone today, I hate writing in lined paper. Like, I got blank paper, and I'm still writing, I'm not drawing, but for some reason, not having the lines, it's like, it allows my creativity to flow. And I bet you liked doing those things because they were more abstract, and you could just you didn't have to put things in a linear, like you said, order. You could put something over here and put something over here and experiment and play, and like, it's almost like a tarot card. Like, you're doing images, you're basically making a tarot card, like images that add up and mean something. And I've been studying a lot about where tarot came from, and I think it's so interesting because it didn't start out with all this emotional and spiritual imagery. It started out with literally just 9 cups, 5 cups, had no emotional connotation.
It was a game at first.
Yeah,
playing game, and right. And then it wasn't really until the Golden Dawn or the salons of Paris in the 1890s that really brought it into, this kind of movement of being a form of divination, or a form to connect to a spiritual kind of meaning in somebody's life energetically. So it is super interesting. Behind me, you will see I have the Tarot Marseille here.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. So, it was a game, and that's what it was supposed to be. And then it really kind of morphed into this bigger thing. But I can't say, and I tell people all the time too, I can't say enough. All they are little pictures on a card.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not supposed to be scary. It's not supposed to be, it's not supposed to give you, this connotation that a spirit is going to follow you home. Like, it's not supposed to do that for you. It's supposed to just give you a little bit of clarity, a little bit of direction, a little bit of grounding, however you want to take it. It's a tool. It's supposed to be used for however you want to move forward, not a future.
Yeah. And I happen to be reading, I get this Country Living magazine, which is so funny since I live in New York.
Country Living.
Yeah. Remember that? I love magazines, by the way, because I also like to collect them so I can make vision boards. But funny enough, as I'm putting this course together, and I was looking at like the relationship with the playing cards, which have like exact references to the suits, right? Like the Minor Arcana. It actually said, I happen to just happen, so that's like my word for signs, but it said that the 52 cards of the Minor Arcana were based on the 52 weeks of the year. And I was like, oh my
Yes.
gosh. And then and that the 4 suits were actually the seasons, which I'd never heard of before. So I'm like, that makes a ton of sense with like, you know, the cold, the ice queen, that kind of thing versus the fire card. I'm like, oh, now it's all coming together in my head and I'm getting it. And you know,
it's like click, click,
not
click,
random.
click, click.
It's not random.
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
It's not random. But you know, you can read somebody's energy with playing cards as well. Because they correspond to some of the pip cards of the minor arcana that we have.
I did that once. So, I forgot to bring my cards. My friend wanted me to read her. I was like, I bet, do you have any playing cards lying around? Like, and it actually worked. Because you know what card came up was the one we got today, Asa of
exactly.
And I was like, I just had this feeling she would get a new job opportunity, and she did right after that. So
that's awesome. That's great. They sure do. Well, is there anything that you have going on that you want to talk about in the last couple of minutes that we have together right here on the podcast?
Sure. I mean, I have my Facebook group, which I love having you in, and I do my free weekly readings. That's just a way for me to feel connected to people. It keeps my momentum going. I do the free, actually tomorrow at 11 Eastern time. And if people jump in that Facebook group, it's just Follow Your Soul Path on Facebook. And you pop in the chat, I'll pull a card for you, you know, just help you on your path. I do that every week. If they want to book readings, my website's followyoursoulpath.com. And I turned my 60-minute reading into kind of like an intuitive coaching / tarot readings. It's like, I can get everything out in 30 minutes. So if we're going to do an hour, let's talk about what came up and what you're going to do with it and what might be holding you back. And then if you want more one-on-one, you know, accountability for a longer period of time, I do have that 3-month program. I'm enrolling people first week of August. So if anyone's interested in that, they can book a free call and ask me anything they want about it. And I'll also talk a little bit about like what you're struggling with and how I might be able to help you and what I would do to help you pass that. So that's all there on the website. And eventually I'll have your episode up there too.
Oh, yeah. Well, you'll have it later today. I will make sure, or later this evening. Followyoursoulpath.com is where we can find Nicole. And you know what? You did say that your grandmother's name is Nadine. I love that you brought that into your actual name, you know, because that's really important too, to kind of pay homage to our ancestors and kind of, you know, throw that out there. I love that you did that. I did not know that until today.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, but it's been a pleasure talking with you and getting to know you a little bit differently, you know, on this level. I mean, we could talk all day about all the things that happen within our lives and kind of the correlations between different things that are kind of, you know, within our business as well as within our lifestyle. But I feel that, you know, bringing that idea of a coaching mentality to people, because that's exactly what we do, whether it is that we have a certification to do that, or whether it is that we have a program that we have set up specifically, i.e. what you have done. It's really important that we look at it like that. It's not to tell your future. It's not to give you all the answers. It's not to, you know, make you feel like you're on top of the world all of the time, because we all are human beings and we all have different emotions and different things that go on with that. But to have somebody in your corner to hold space for you and give you a different perspective sometimes is exactly what is needed sometimes. And I feel like what you are doing for the community is really great too. And, you know, I love that we connected randomly, and I love that, you know, we can have this conversation.
Random.
Yeah, totally random. But you know, it doesn't matter time, space, distance, you know, when you find people that really connect with your soul level, that's what this is about, right? And to trust your intuition, to actually continue conversations and to get to know them on a different level is where we're at. So Nicole, I appreciate having you on and hanging out, and, you know, and I'm sure that we'll do this again. I know that you have other people that you kind of wanted to bring on, and, you know, that we could talk about. And I think that having a roundtable discussion about different things is really important, not only with just the two of us, but with other folks as well. So I'll definitely have you on in other episodes.
That'd be great.
I so appreciate everything tonight, and I hope that you have the best, and I'm glad you're feeling better, but I hope you have the best week and all the things that you have going on. For everybody watching, for everybody watching, I appreciate you tuning in to this episode of The Witch is In with me, Sarah G, Witch MD. And don't forget, your card is Matt Hughes, the Ethereal Tarot. It is very beautiful, but does not photograph well on camera. It's the Ace of Pentacles. If you haven't already chosen your 3-card pull for the collective on my Facebook page or Instagram page, please do so because I did post that. And that's about it. Thank you guys for joining me, and I'll see you next Tuesday.
Thank you.